about. We continue with Shir Adonai Shir Chadash 133.
Sing a new song. Shir Adonai, Shir Chadash, Shir Adonai, Kol Haaretz, Shir Adonai, Baruchu Shemo, Yasur Miyom Liyom, Yeshuato, Zabru, Agoyim, Kevodo, Zabru,
So I'm going to ask you for a favor. You know, Jessica sings, the rabbi, if she's not suffering from a bad cold, she sings. I want to hear you a little bit more. And if you don't know the words, can I hear you hum? Hum is the best prayer to the Almighty, right? God can pick the little jewels out and say, oh, I like this prayer better than that one. And you don't have to worry about the words. So just don't get too hung up about the words if you don't know them. If you can sort of hum with all your might, I think that is probably an even better prayer to the Almighty. So if you don't know it, don't worry about it. We're going to go straight into Psalm 29 on page 136. It's a Sephardi melody, but you'll hear me do it long enough, you'll probably sing along just with me. It can be in key, out of tune, doesn't matter.
Avu l'Adonai b'nei Elim, Avu l'Adonai kavod va'oz, Avu l'Adonai kavod shemo, Ishtachavu l'Adonai behadrat kodesh, Kol Adonai al hamayim el hakavod, Irim Adonai al mayim, al mayim, al mayim rabim, al mayim, al mayim, al mayim rabim. Kol Adonai ba'koach, Kol Adonai be'adar, Kol Adonai shover arazim, Vishaber Adonai et arze almanon, Vayerkedem kemo egel Lebanon, Besirion kemo ben re'emim, kemo ben re'emim. Kol Adonai chotzev la'avotesh, Kol Adonai yachil midebar, yachil Adonai midbar kadesh, Kol Adonai yachalel ayalot, vayechesov ye'arot, uvechalo kulo merkavot, kulo merkavot, kulo merkavot. Adonai lama bul yashav, vayeshev Adonai melech leolam. Adonai oz le'amo yiten, Adonai yevarech et amo v'shalom. The Chadudi, the Sabbath presents, king, queen, or whatever you would like it to be, let's bring them in. Ikrat kala, belishat, lekabena, shamor v'sachor, beliborecha, ishmi'anu el hamiuchad, Adonai echad, u'shemo echad. see, people, I see that it looks nice and warm when you're so huddled close together. I get it. Makes perfect sense. We're on page 140 with Psalm 92.
ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון. להגיד כאור חסדך, ואמונתך בלילות. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון. כי שימחתני אדוני בפועלך, במעשה ידיך שבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון.
So one of my favorite two lines in Jewish prayer is in this psalm. It says, Ma gadlu ma'asecha Adonai me'od amku machshavotecha. It's actually a blessing you're supposed to say when you see something or somebody extraordinarily beautiful or amazing. And the first time this came to my mind was when I was standing in Big Sur in California, and I saw the mountains going into the ocean, and I had never seen them together. So you say, Magad Luma Asecha Adonai, how great are your works, O God, and how infinite your wisdom in having created them. And I think you all have those moments, right? You look at something, very often in nature, and that you're just gobsmacked by it. Remember this line, how great are your works, O God, and how wonderful that you have made them. We're on page 142, Shalom Aleichem. A very simple melody, has to be, because if I have to sing it, it has to be simple. And hopefully you'll join in. It's a simple melody.
Shalom Aleichem, Malchei Hasharet, Malchei Elyon, Malchei Elyon, Bimelech, Malchei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Boachem L'Shalom, Malchei HaShalom, Malchei Elyon, Malchei Elyon, Bimelech, Malchei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Baruch Ni L'Shalom. I can't hear you hum. Malchei Elyon, Malchei Elyon, Bimelech, Malchei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Tzedechem L'Shalom, Malchei HaShalom, Malchei Elyon, Malchei Elyon, Bimelech, Malchei Amlachim,
on page 144. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה. ועלמא דברה חירותי וימליך מלכותי. בחייכון וביומכון. ובחיי לכל בית ישראל בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו. יהי שמי רבה מרח ללמלמי אלמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא. ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה. לילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה דאמירן בעלמה, ואמרו Amen. Would you please remain standing for the baruch? Have a seat, please. We're on page 148. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bidvaro ma'ariv avim, בחוכמה פותח שרים ובתבונה משנה עתים, ומחליף את הזמנים, ומסדר את הכוכבים במשמורותיהם ברקיע כרצונו, בורא יום ולילה, כולל אור מפני חושך וחושך מפני אור, ומעביר יום ומביא לילה, ומבדיל בין יום ובין לילה, אדוני צבאות שמו. אל חי וקיים תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני, המעריב ערבים. And on page 149, the first reading. If you feel like joining in, do so. Praise to you, eternal our God, from whom this evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and seasons glide, and your breath guides the sail of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night, and as heaven spans into infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, eternal our God, from whom this evening flows. Baruch atah Adonai, hama'ariv aravim. אהבת עולם בית ישראל עמך אהבת, תורה ומצוות, חוקים ומשפטים, אותנו לימדת. Everlasting love you offered your people Israel by teaching us Torah and mitzvot, laws and precepts. Therefore, eternal our God, when we lie down and when we rise up, we will meditate on your laws and your commandments, and we will rejoice in your Torah forever. Day and night we will reflect on them, for they are our life and the length of our days. Never remove your love from us. Blessed are you, Eternal One, who loves the people Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, ohev amo Yisrael. We continue with the Shema. Would you please rise?
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem, Kevod Malchuto, Leolam Va'ed.
Have a seat. We're on page 154. My Va'avta melody is perhaps slightly different than yours, but join in anyway.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבבך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בהם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לעוד על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך.
You shall love your eternal God with all your heart, with all your soul and all your might. Take to heart these instructions with which I charge you this day. Impress them upon your children. Recite them when you stay at home and when you are away, when you lie down and when you get up. Bind them as a sign upon your hand, and let them be a symbol before your eyes. Inscribe them on the doorposts of your house and upon your gates.
למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם, אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים, אני אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
Okay, let's see. Sorry people, still a really bad cold.
אמת ואמונה כל זאת וקיים עלינו כי הוא אדוני אלוהינו ואין זולתו, ואנחנו ישראל עמו. הפודנו מיד מלאכים מלכנו הגול עלינו מכף כל העריצים, העושה גדולות עד אין חקר ונפלאות עד אין מספר, השם נפשנו בחיים ולא נתן למות רגלינו.
All this we hold to be true and trustworthy for us. You alone are our God, and we are Israel, your people. You are our sovereign and Savior. You know this better than I do. Come on, people, I want to hear you. Who delivers us from oppressors' hands and saves us from tyrants' fists. You have the same words in your book. Come on. You work wonders. And this is then prayer, right? It doesn't have to be synchronized. You can come in at different times and it sort of rolls in the sanctuary. That's a true prayer, people. So it doesn't have to be all staccato and the same. I think the Almighty likes it a heck of a lot better if He can hear all of your neshamot coming through. The Micha Mocha on page 158. Let's hear you.
מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש. נורא תהילות אוסף אלה, נורא תהילות אוסף אלה. מלכותך ראו בניך, בוקע הים לפני משה ומרים, זה אלי ענו ואמרו, אדוני מלוך לעולם ועד. ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב, וגואלו מיד חזק ממנו, ברוך אתה אדוני, גאל ישראל. We're on page 160 with the Hashkivenu, and I just wrote to the music person that I used to work for and with for many, many years, and she put a different Hashkivenu in, which she's going to send me the music so I can give it to Jessica, and also a Ma'ariv Aravim we put to music. So in the next couple of weeks you're going to hear some different melodies, but Hashkivenu is for me one of those moments that I'm allowing myself to go like, whew, it's Friday night, we got here. And that's why this prayer is very gentle. It's a gentle prayer. The Hebrew is gentle, and the flow is gentle. And as I said last week, it says a shelter of peace is nice, but I prefer a blanket of peace, right? Because that's what we want, something warm and protective. A shelter always has harsh corners, I think. A blanket doesn't have any of those. Ashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, v'hamidenu malkeinu l'chaim. ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך, ותגננו בעצה טובה מלפניך והושיענו למען שמך, והגן בעדנו. ועשה מעלינו אויב, דבר וחרב ורעב ויגון. ובצל כנפיך תסתירנו, כי אל שומרנו מצילנו אתה, כי אל מלך חנון ורחום אתה. ושמור צאתנו ובואנו, לחיים ולשלום, מעתה ועד עולם. ברוך אתה אדוני הפורס סוכת שלום עלינו ועל כל עמו ישראל ועל ירושלים. So we're on page 161, the second reading. If you want to join in, do so. Give us a place to rest, eternal our God. Bring us into shelter, into the soft, long evening shadows of your truth. For with you are true protection and safety, and in your presence are acceptance and gentle love. Watch over us as we go forth, and prepare for us as we return. Spread over us your blanket of peace, over all we love, over our Jerusalem and yours. Baruch atah Adonai, hapores sukat shalom, aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael, ve'al Yerushalayim. We continue with the Yismachu on page 162.
Shabbat, Shabbat, yambidi bam bam bam. Shabbat, Shabbat, yambidi bam bam bam. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat. Yismachu,
ישמחו במלכותך, ישמחו, ישמחו במלכותך.
שומרי שבת, שומרי שבת, וקורא עונג עונג שבת. שומרי שבת, שומרי שבת, וקורא עונג עונג שבת. מקדש שלי, כולם ייסעו ויתעמו.
ישמחו במלכותך,
ישמחו, ישמחו במלכותך. שומרי שבת, שומרי שבת, קורא עונג עונג שבת. שומרי שבת, שומרי שבת, קורא עונג עונג שבת. האור שלי רצית בו, רצית בו וקידשתו. עמדת ימים אותו קראת, זבל המעשה בראשית שית. ישמחו, ישמחו במלכותך, ישמחו, ישמחו במלכותך. שומרי שבת, שומרי שבת, קורא עונג עונג שבת. שומרי שבת, שומרי שבת, וקורא עונג עונג שבת.
So So we're on page 164, the Amidah, known as the standing prayer, or Het Filah, or the prayer. It's a fascinating prayer in that it gave everybody a chance in the community, whether they knew Hebrew or not, whether they were learned or not, rich or not, to stand as equals. And so in the Talmud, we often refer to it as the equalizer prayer. And we'll do some of it together and some of it privately, since we do it twice. Okay.
אדוני שפתי תפתח ופי יגיד תהילתך. Eternal God, open up our lips that our mouths may declare your praise. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו ואמותינו, אלוהי אברהם, אלוהי יצחק ואלוהי יעקב, אלוהי שרה, אלוהי רבקה, אלוהי רחל ואלוהי לאה, האל הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון, גומל חסדים טובים וקונה הכל, וזוכה חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה, מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן. ברוך אתה אדוני מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיה מתים אתה רב להושיע. מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיה מתים ברחמים רבים. סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו בשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה לחיות מתים. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי המתים. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יעללוך הסלע. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש. So from now on you'll hear me do opening and closing, and in the middle is for us to direct our prayers to the Almighty ourselves. אתה קידשת את יום השביעי לשמך. ויחולו השמיים והארץ וכל צבאם, ויחל אלוהים ביום השביעי מלאכתו אשר עשה. כי בו שבת מכל מלאכתו אשר ברא אלוהים לעשות. אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו ואמותינו, עצי מנוחתנו, קדשנו במצוותיך, ותן חלקנו בתורתך, שבענו משועתך. באהבה ורצון שבת קודשך, וירוכו בישראל מקדשי שמך. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת. רצה אדוני אלוהינו ממך ישראל, ותפילתם באהבה תקבל. ותחזינו עינינו בשובע לציון ברחמים. ברוך אתה אדוני החמך חזיר שכינתו לציון. מודים אנחנו לך. מודים אנחנו לך שאתה הוא אדוני אלוהינו אלוהי אבותינו ואימותינו
לעולם ועד.
זו חיינו מגן אישנו. זו חיינו מגן אישנו. אתה הוא לדור ודור, לדור ודור. נודה לך ונספר תהילתך, על חיינו המסורים בידך, ועל נשמותינו הפקודות לך, ועל ניסיך שבכל יום עמך.
לעולם יתברך, ויתרום שמך מלכנו תמיד לעולם ועד, וכל החיים ידעו חסלם. ברוך אתה אדוני הטוב, שמך לחנה להודות, שלום רב על ישראל, תשים לעולם כי אתה הוא מלך אדון לכל השלום. ברוך אתה אדוני המעביר את עמו ישראל בשלום. אלוהי נצור לשוני מרע ושפתי מדבר מרמה. נפשי תדום נפשי חפר לכל, להיות פתח ליבי בתורתך, במצוותיך תרדוף נפשי. יהי רצוני מלפי צורי וגואלי עושה שלום רמה ויעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן.
עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום ישראל וכל יושבי תבל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן.
Moment out to think of all those people within the community and on the outside who could use an extra prayer. It could be because they're physically not doing well. Could also be because they're emotionally not doing well. If you have the name of such a person, would you call it out now?
Neil Danziger. Neil Russell.
מי שברך לאבותינו מקור הברכה לאמותינו, may the source of strength who bless the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Mi sheberach bimotenu v'kol habracha labotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say
So each year, as we read Parashat Korach, I find myself very uncomfortable with the central character and namesake of this week's parasha. In the Torah, a book that generally has no absolute heroes or villains, Korach comes about as close as anyone to being the embodiment of evil in this portion. And while Moshe speaks out and defends the people on many an occasion, he shows very little sympathy for Korach and his fellow rebels. Moshe, quietly as Moshe is outraged by Korach's rebellion and infuriated because he challenges not only Moshe's leadership, but also God's wisdom. The problem with this portion is that if you look closely, Korach does not appear so bad if we take him at his word. In fact, I would suggest that Korach appears to sound a lot like a man who was ahead of his time. And when he approaches Moshe, he argues, correctly so I think, that one should not presume to have absolute power over the people. And this is what he says to Moshe and Aaron. He says, you two, you've gone too far. For the entire community is holy, and the Eternal One is sitting in their midst. So why then do you two raise yourselves above God's congregation? Having stood at Har Sinai when the Torah was given, all of us, Korach argues, Judaism should be of the people, by the people, and for the people. And he does not like that Moses has absolute power over the nation, and also because Moses is told by the Almighty to turn the Kohanim, the Kohanut, the priesthood, over to his brother. So maybe Korach had good reason to be ticked off at his very younger cousin. Why then are the rabbis so angry and have so much animosity towards this human being? And the Midrash, which is a collection, whenever rabbis don't know the answer, we come up with a Midrash. It's a story that very often not has happened at all. It gets into a collection of sermons, and it's a rabbinic explanation of a text that we find uncomfortable or difficult, or we don't know what to do with, right? So the Midrash picks up where the Torah leaves off. And it portrays Korach as a demagogue, as someone who's cynical, a heretic, and a self-serving egotist, out to satisfy his own interests. He not only challenges Moshe, but he also questions the authority of the Torah. And so throughout the ages, I'll put myself there in that little line as well, Korach has become a very convenient punching bag for anyone who challenged rabbinic authority. So what is so bad about this Korach? Was he a Democrat or a demagogue? Was he a sinner? Was he a saint? Nowhere do we find a punishment as severe as this one. He and 250 of his followers are swallowed up by the earth and buried alive. And I would argue that the conflict between Moshe and Korach has more to do with ascribed versus achieved authority than democracy. I would suggest that to understand Korach's real motivation, you have to consider his background and his family, and the background and family of his fellow rebels. As a Levite, Korach may have been outraged by the fact that he was passed over in that lineage of leadership. Korach was the son of an older descendant in the house of Levi, and by right of that birth, he should have been given the first stab to become the religious leader of the community. And yet not only did Moshe hold this position of leader, but it's eventually Aaron who is given authority over the tribe of Levi itself. And similarly, in that Torah portion tomorrow morning, you see that Tan, Abiram, and On ben Peled were descendants of the tribe of Reuven. And since Reuben was the oldest of Jacob's brothers, they might have felt that they had a right to rule over the nation instead of Moshe. And finally, the 250 malcontents that joined Korach are described as chieftains of the community, who joined Korach as chosen of the assembly, as men of repute. And so a lot of our commentaries suggest that they were the firstborn of the various clans and tribes, and that as such, they also had a claim to the leadership of the nations, since the firstborn were supposed to be in charge. So the picture that emerges is not one of a unified revolt, but a band of people who each had their own personal agenda. And maybe that's why the rabbis refer to this controversy as the controversy
of Korach and his company, rather than the controversy of Korach and Moshe. Korach and his followers were not of one mind. They were really feuding amongst themselves. They were jockeying for positions themselves. The Almighty chose Moshe and Aaron not because they were ascribed the right of leadership by virtue of their family or tribal position, but because they had earned the authority by example. Time again, these two put their lives on the line. And by the time of the rabbis, leadership had passed from the priesthood, those who had ascribed leadership, to the rabbis who had to achieve leadership by their actions and by their behavior. And think about it, the rabbis were rich and poor. They came from every walk of life, but they led by example and by the depth of their knowledge. To understand what was wrong with Korach then, one has to look beyond his words and recognize that he really had an ulterior motive for his rebellion. Last night, because I had trouble breathing, I watched a documentary on Nelson Mandela, a leader who achieved victory not because he was ascribed the right of leadership by virtue of his family or tribal position, but he also earned that authority by example. Time and again, he also put his life on the line. He led by example and by the depth of his connection to his people, and he eventually also his knowledge. And he said it so beautifully, I just want to read it to you. Remind me again what a prince of a person this really was. It was during those long and lonely years that my hunger for the freedom of my people became a hunger for the freedom of all people, white and black. I understood that the oppressor must be liberated just as surely as the oppressed. A person who takes away another's freedom is a prisoner of hatred. He's locked behind the bars of prejudice and narrow-mindedness. We are not yet free. We have merely achieved the freedom to be free. We have not yet been freed, but we have taken the first step on a longer and even more difficult road. I have walked that long road to freedom, only to find that after climbing that great hill, that there are many more hills to climb. Later in the book of Numbers, we read, Bnei Korach lo metu. The children of Korach did not die, presumably in the great disaster that ended their father's rebellion. And Yeshaya Leibowitz, I think one of the best commentators that we have and had out of Jerusalem, however, suggests that this means that in every generation, there are people who are ready to assume autonomy because they believe that they are as close to the Almighty as they need to be. And so we live, as mere human beings, we live in a state of constant tension between listening to the voice of God and answering our own inner consciences. There are no simple or easy answers or simple or easy solutions. And so we continue to struggle with this tension in Jewish life and in life in general. Bnei Korach lo metu. The descendants of Korach are still very much alive. There will always be demagogues in the community at large, people who feel they can make their own rules and do not feel bound by anything. We can struggle with the tensions of Jewish life, but we also have to look at our own inner motivations. And the rabbis suggest that Korach is really a mnemonic, an abbreviation for kin'ah, romimut, and chemda, jealousy, arrogance, and covetousness. These were the true motivations that led Korach and his motley crew into a rebellion. I would say we have every right to challenge and question our authority, but we always have to ask ourselves what is behind those questions. Shabbat Shalom. All right. I do not like Korach. He's one of my least favorite people. The other one is Pinchas, but for all sorts of other reasons, which we won't go into. Let's see. The Aleinu, I'm going to ask Deborah and Peter to come up to open the ark for the Aleinu together. Come. Because Peter, I skipped you, I think, for the Amida, correct? Yes, come. Do it together. Would you please rise? Coming? Yes, no, yes, it's coming. Give a minute.
Okay, go ahead. Open the ark. Okay.
Yeah, okay, there you go.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצא בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
Come, go ahead. Do it together on the outside. Yeah. There you go. Thank you. Shabbat.
Peter, sorry that I skipped you.
Pay attention. My mistake.
So I wanted to actually introduce a slight change to our ritual, and you let me know how you feel about it. I come from a tradition where only those in mourning stand up for the mourner's Kaddish, but I've also been a rabbi in a tradition where everybody stands up for the mourner's Kaddish as a way to support the mourners among us. So I have combined it, so I usually ask those people who are in the first 2 weeks of mourning, if they're comfortable, to come and stand up front, and I'll join them, and then we can stand up together as a community and say Kaddish together, but that way at least we can see who might be a person in the community who is experiencing a loss, and it gives us an opportunity to perform the mitzvah of reaching out to those people. Otherwise, very often they disappear, right, as we all stand up together. So I'm going to try and do that tonight with you and see what you think about that. It is a fearful thing to love what death can touch, a fearful thing to love, to hope, to dream, to be and then to lose. A thing for fools this, and a holy thing. It is a holy thing to love, for your life has lived in me, and your love once lifted me, and your word was a gift to me. And to remember this brings a painful joy. 'Tis a human thing, love, a holy thing to love, what death has touched. We remember with love all those who were dear to us and have died. They were our parents, our spouses, our siblings, other relatives, our children, our friends, and our colleagues, and our peers. We lived with all of these people. We lived with all of them, and we shared moments of great joy and great celebration. And as we hold all of those memories, the bitter ones together with the sweet, we give thanks for their legacy of wisdom and tradition, but most of all, we give thanks for their legacy of love. And tonight, we remember.
Thank you. Tonight is a special welcome to the States. We had a bereavement earlier this week. We're delighted to meet with you and see you this evening. Also to Michael Richmond and family, who also had a similar event this past week. In addition, Angie Bolon, mother-in-law of Fulvia Bolon, grandmother of Mila Ravid, Anne Fingelson, grandmother of Diane Lazarus, Annie Kane, grandmother of Aubrey Goldman, Ilana King, mother of Rena King, Boris Midwiski, father of Jason Milwiski, Mona Nathanson, mother of Aubrey Nathanson, Anne Putzicher, sister of Michael Kallenbach and George Putzicher, and friend of Judy Hodes. Julius Siegel, father of Brian Siegel, grandfather of Jody and Morgana Siegel. Sandy Tobkin, mother of Gavin Tobkin. Diana van der Bijl, grandmother of James Longberg, and Johan van der Bijl, grandfather of James Longberg. May their memory be for a blessing.
So if there's anybody here in the first week of mourning, if you're comfortable, would you come up front? Just come up front, stand next to me. And you're fine.
Gadal wird gedacht in jener Welt, der Mann gefragt in der These an die Mann-Bitte, Bachai Choni Biomaton, Bachai Choni Israel, Va'agalav Ismat Karim in Berum, Amen. Yeshnei Rama Barach Alam Amaya, Yishbarach Yishbarach, Yishbarach 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 Shemei Kedishah Yishbarach Leila Minko Bechata Shira, Tushbachata Bechata, Amira Be'alma B'Igru, Yesh Amara Mishmai L'Chayim, Aleinu Yakol Yisrael, B'Igru, Asher Shalom B'Mama, Asher Shalom, Aleinu Yakol Yisrael, B'Igru, Amen. In the source of peace, and peace to all you are remembering, and also to you who are in mourning. Let's see.
Have a seat. All right, let's see. Any more announcements, Paul? Announcements that we need to know about?
I can.
Okay.
It's up.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm delighted to see you all here, and once again, a warm welcome on this cold night to Chava, Rabbi Chava, for joining us. And despite a cold, her voice seems to be in pretty good shape.
It's due to your hanky.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
There was to be a pilgrimage of sorts to Temple Israel tomorrow for Shabbos morning service, but it had to be postponed for reasons unknown to me. But it will probably take place next week.
Okay.
So tomorrow morning Shabbat service will be here in the Sloan Auditorium.
Okay.
And those who would like and can and would love to attend, we'd be delighted if you would join us for that. During the course of the week, this week, we have another Sami collection for Thursday. We had a really magnificent donation of sandwiches and clothes 10 days ago. And I'm appealing to all to please, on Wednesday afternoon, bring sandwiches, bring soap, bring tinned food, bring clothes that you don't use, anything. They go very quickly and to people who are really in need. There are about 150 odd people who regularly come on the Thursday, and we try to give them enough, not for the 2 weeks, but certainly enough for about 5 or 6 days.
And can people drive with other people to
Sorry?
go? Can people join you in your car or a lift?
We're always looking for volunteers.
Okay.
Peter Joseph leads that particular group, but if you'd like to come, we usually start at somewhere around about 9 o'clock at Temple Israel. There is safe parking at Temple Israel if you'd like to join us. But join us if you can, but certainly bring sandwiches, fruit, clothes, and anything else that you would like to. We also collect donations that we use to purchase products, and soap in particular, and a kind of a porridge that we get, which they can mix up with boiled water, and it's very nutritious. And one meal probably is enough, not enough, but it will get them through a day. So it's an important outreach that we undertake, and it'd be wonderful to get as many people as we can. And then the last is that please remind your fellow congregants that we're back in shul, that Rabbi Chaver is here, that we would love to see you on Friday night, Saturday mornings, and every other simcha that we have. So have a wonderful rest of the week. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. I wanted to thank Jessica as always, and our drummer. I forgot your name, but that's me. I'm here, but I'm not completely here, but hopefully next week I'll have a home, and then I'll be more settled, whatever that means. Adon Olam, whatever melody Jessica picks.
Adon Olam, Asher Malach B'terem Kol Yitzir Nivra Le'et Nasa B'chetzo Kol Azai Melech Shemo Nira V'yacharei Kirot HaKol Levado Yimloch Nora V'hu Haya V'hu Hoveh V'hu Yeh B'tivarav V'hu Echad V'en Sheni Lehamshilo Leachbira V'li Reshit V'li Tachlit V'lo Haoz V'hamizrach V'hu Eli V'chai Goli V'tzorchev li Be'et Tzara V'hu Nisi U'manus li Benat Kozi B'yom Echad B'yaro Avkiruch li B'tisha V'ha'ira V'imruchi Geriyati Adonai V'lo ira.
So a little aside, you'll hear me do that a lot. I love to explain to people where these things come from, these prayers, right, that you recite all your life. This is written towards the very end of the golden age of Spanish Jewry. And you can see it. The verses are talking about God's unity and God's kingdom, and there is only one God and no other, without beginning or end. And then you get to the last stanza, and it changes in its tone. It says, Beyado afkid ruchi. In God's hands do I place my soul. Beit ishan va'ira, should I be awake or asleep? Ve'im ruchi gviati, and should my soul leave me? Adonai li velo ira, I shall not be afraid because the Almighty is with me. So it goes from absolute euphoric praise of God to all of a sudden realizing that we're not so safe anymore on the land, in the land where this was written. And it becomes very personal. So in God's hands do I place my well-being and my soul. And so it's one of the most beautiful prayers we had. It originally started and came from the high holidays. Never existed before that. It became so popular that it slipped its way into the daily prayer book and Shabbat, but hopefully more about in the weeks to come. Shabbat Shalom. Let's go and get something to drink and warm each other up. There you go. Oh, do I have to shake hands at the door? Yes, I will. Give me a minute. I won't kiss you, though, this time. Permission of my germs? Oh, okay, there you go for that, because I am a little bit... I'll go down the middle. That's safer. These feet are mine.